Aye.
Opposed, carried. Thank you. We have with us our committee clerk, Carly Dolsky, and Tracy Graham, our CFO, is at the table. We'll have a number of other members of the public service with us here this morning as well. Now our land acknowledgement. I would like to acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Innu, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. Councillor Aller, would you care to move that the minutes of the meeting held on February 6, 2026 be taken as read and confirmed?
So moved.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. We have two delegations. Steve Snyder. Good morning, sir.
Morning, councillors. Thanks for having me again. My name's Steve Snyder. I was going to be here last month regarding the commitment reserve, but it got canceled. So I'm going to take just 2 minutes, or well, not even 1 minute to talk about that. And then I'll go into the financial status report. So the commitment reserve points out that about 45% of the communities fund, I think it was like $1.2 million, is being carried over. Well, the community and neighborhood grants, a points-based grant system, is sitting at 2.5 million. This communities fund, which didn't even spend its entire fund from last year, is getting a $1.7 million increase, and the community fund still sits at the same amount. I think that the community funds should be seeing that sort of increase instead of the communities fund. Personally, it's a point-based system. It is based off of needs, not off of the neighborhood wants that the councillor wants to put through. So that's my spiel on the commitment reserve. The carryover, I mean, it's just it's not even being spent, and we're increasing the budget to it. That seems a little ridiculous to me. Second, the financial status report. So I sent to you guys 3 charts that show the financial status. I used the data from the last 20 financial reports, audited financial statements, that include the net financial position, which we can see, despite a lot of people here saying that it is the COVID-19 pandemic, that our financial position has been decreasing substantially for the last 20 years. The second one shows our debt. What did I send you second? Sorry. The second chart, interest payments as a ratio to revenues. It's showing basically a slightly downward trend, which is a positive. But when you look deeper into the numbers, you can see that that's just interest rate. We're actually increasing our debt amount by a substantial amount every single year. And that makes us a huge risk to interest rate increases. Right now, we're sitting at $1.6 billion of debt, I believe, on the consolidated financial statement, which is just in my opinion, crazy. 20 years ago, we were at 448, and we were on a steady decline going into those years. I would like to. The last one that I sent you guys was the book cost to actual costs of fixed assets. So our fixed assets, it's remaining steady. The value of our fixed assets compared to the book cost of the fixed assets remaining steady at about 62%, which is a decent number. But when you look deeper again into those numbers, it's because we've increased the amount of fixed assets that we have at the cost. Like, we're just working on the denominator. We're not working on the numerator. We're adding new a lot faster than we're fixing what we have, and that's creating a steady decline on all of our fixed assets. And then that leads into the financial stabilization reserve, which is a part of this financial status report. Financial status or the financial stabilization reserve is being decreased this year. I believe the final was 17 million, and then next year we're actually using it just to balance the budget right at the beginning of the year, which, I mean, we are completely inflexible in our finances right now. We really need to get a handle on some of these things because we have so many risks. I want to see my kids staying in the city. This city is the place that I love, the place that I live, and I can't see a positive future with the way that the finances of the city are going right now. So that's my spiel. Councillor Stevens.
Yes, thank you for your presentation this morning. Just with respect to the communities fund, and the reason why it might appear that it's not being expended is that, I mean, a lot of times councillors are working projects with community groups, and it does take a little bit of time before these plans are executed. So that's why there may be carryover.
Yeah, but it's still seeing an increase. Whereas the communities and neighborhood fund isn't seeing that same increase, whereas that's a point-based system and the other one is just it's a want-based system. You have other avenues that you could fund projects like that in the community, CIGP, land dedication reserve.
Granted, but again, the fact that councillors are working different projects and as for instance, I was elected in 2018. I just saw the installation of play equipment. One of the first projects I worked on when I was elected in 2018 was with the Parent Advisory Council at Christine Los Toronto School. And it was just last year that the play equipment was implemented. So it does take some time from beginning to end. And that's why these funds may be carried over from year to year to year.
Yeah.
Until those projects are completed.
And again, I understand the carryover, and it says right in the idea behind the communities fund in the budget that yes, there's going to be carryover because there's multiple things that we can do. It's the increase. We're increasing that budget while it's still being carried over, and this community and neighborhood grant that is a points-based system, a needs-based system that had $16 million of requests and only 2.5 gets approved, 160 groups, 100 of them aren't seeing any funds. But this communities fund is being increased. That's where my issue comes.
Channeling my inner Brian Mays here. I mean, the points-based system that I think that is relevant here is votes cast. This is the most discretionary money that members of the council have. They're elected, and community desires and community desires are also very relevant to taxpayers in Winnipeg. So I think that's the points that do actually impact the communities fund.
Thank you.
Any other questions? You're none. Thank you very much, Steve.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
Next delegation, Kelly Ryback is also here in person. Very good. Good morning.
Good morning, councillors. Thank you for this opportunity. There's things that when you look at a financial report, what numbers stick out or what the practices are. And the first thing that stuck out to me was how I just found it amazing that the budget amount and the actual amounts for efficiencies, expenditures, management, WPS, efficiencies, and the vacancy management, those three line items were budgeted and performed actual 100%. It's like, wow, that's amazing. It'd be great if every department was able to do that. But one thing is, a couple of things I point out was a number of factors leading to positives was delays in hiring. Yet our FST, our FTE rose 249 over 2024. Another one that pointed out was in 2024, there was a surplus of $7.2 million, but that was buoyed up because $28 million was not used to pay for gray bin garbage collection, was used elsewhere within the budget because a loan was taken out of the reserve, which also in 2025, finances benefit by that also, along with the new waste management fee. Another one that just pointed out was that revenue and expenses were identical in the budget for transit, and so it enabled transit to deliver a $4.1 million surplus. A couple of other things with regards to the financial stabilization reserve was the quantity of transfers that were deposited into the reserve. That will those, in order for year over year, will those transfers exist next year? I believe the One Manitoba Growth Program was a one-time transfer. I also question how you could receive a transfer from Animal Services of $1.8 million when they ran a $588,000 deficit in the year. So those are kind of things just make you go, what's going on here? Winnipeg Parking Authority revenue missed their target by 11%. So to understand why that is it because of the transfer to the app and people stopped coming downtown because they didn't want to use the app? Or is it because people stopped coming downtown because it wasn't a desirable destination anymore based on the revenue that it generates? I would hope that going forward, council looks at improving revenue in with being fairness. I'm always curious as Winnipeg Police Services with their revenue, when it comes to photo radar, what does the commission pay to the contractor? And then what's the revenue generated from red light cameras? And is there a different way of delivering on that? The solid waste and water, in the media, they made big news that consumption was up, which allowed revenue to be up, which may allow us to freeze future rates. It's a campaign year, but what stood out to me was the amount of money generated from sewer of $81 million, and the press didn't really talk about that. But between those numbers, how much of that is to be dedicated to the North End water treatment plant? The other one of the new waste management fee, again, I referred to that earlier, that brand new fee, not included in it as a tax increase, but a brand new fee, that my water bill, and comparing pre and post of that fee, first off, the waste duct version, which was my understanding Blue Box, was $20 a quarter. My new waste management fee is $65 a quarter. So that went up $45. And with the new water rates was another $10.97, which after tax, $85.09 per quarter, which amounts to $340 annually, which is in addition to the 5.95% tax increase of that year, which you combine those two together, it's close to a 9% tax increase. And the financial position of the city between those transfer payments, additional revenue from that and from the tax increase, and yet we still ran a deficit, is concerning. Then you look into another positive with the penalties on unpaid taxes. Well, is that a receivable or is it actually collected? I'd also say that in past years, the Caspian fine penalty was described as a receivable confident to collect. And if they don't pay, you have seized property, which you then have to sell. How much of that have we actually received? And what's going to happen? This is reminiscent of the 911 revenue, which never happened and is now going to be discontinued. Okay. And it's just a lot of, it raises more questions than it solves answers. And where are we and where are we going to be in the future with these one-timers positives? So thank you very much.
Thanks, Kelly. Any questions for Mr. Ryback? Okay, you're none. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Stay safe out there. Slippery.
I didn't cause it. My snow tire is still on. I still got the brush in the
No, it's my fault. I got my tires off on Wednesday. Okay, moving into reports. Number one, Center Venture. Good morning. There, Michelle. Good morning. Our slide deck was distributed this morning.
The report's also attached
Okay.
to the item.
Oh, okay.
Hey, good morning, councillors and committee members. It's a pleasure to present to you Center Venture's annual report for 2025 and to provide some of the highlights of the corporation during the past year. As you know, 2025 marked a new beginning for Center Venture. Thanks to city councillors and Mayor Gillingham, we received a new mandate in 2024 to focus on downtown revitalization through residential density, and I was hired at the beginning of 2025 to provide new leadership to the organization. Thanks to the great team at Center Venture with Loretta Martin and Johanna Chabluk, along with the dedicated board under the leadership of Brad Zander, we worked collaboratively and swiftly to begin developing a new strategic direction. Throughout 2025, we heard from many downtown stakeholders, developers, and city administration, including our friends at Economic Development and Tourism Winnipeg, about the ways in which Center Venture can best support downtown revitalization. Our plan came into place with 5 strategic goals and several initiatives on how we will double the population of downtown, achieve density, and create a welcoming, walkable neighborhood for everyone. And next year, I look forward to reporting to you on how we will be achieving our goals and targets. Center Venture and the City of Winnipeg were also able to partner on a new initiative, the Downtown Heritage Conversion Incentive Program, with tremendous early success. With a combined total of $9.65 million between the Housing Accelerator Fund and the Gail Parvin Hammerquist Fund, we are helping support 5 exciting new developments in the downtown that will create more than 600 housing units. These projects involve rehabilitating vacant heritage buildings at the Marlborough and St. Charles hotels, along with the Moz Garage Sanford property, 290 Gary Street, and the Alloway building, breathing new life into them. This program and these developments would not be underway if it weren't for your support, and I'm deeply appreciative of the City of Winnipeg for its support. Centerventure also relocated its offices to the corner of Portage and Main, positioning us at the heart of downtown while collaborating and working in a shared environment with other key partners, including the Winnipeg's Chamber of Commerce and others in that environment. Centerventure is pleased to be playing a leadership role in the transformation of Graham Avenue. Undoubtedly, we all knew it was going to be a challenge in turning an industrial bus corridor into a pedestrian destination. But we believe the city's Reimagining Graham Avenue placemaking pilot has signs of early success. It introduces features like street murals, public art installations, planters, picnic tables, ping pong tables, custom seating, and turning the street into a space for people to gather, relax, and play. We know we have much more to do in terms of creating a pedestrian corridor that is accommodating activity while supporting retail, and long-range plans are in the works. In the coming months, we look forward to a renewed partnership between the city, province, and Centerventure and the Downtown Biz in supporting that initiative. Marketlands is also a highlight that I want to draw your attention to. I'm sure that development is never far from mind as you look out your windows and see the exciting progress on the south property, and even more to come with the development on the north site. Centerventure is proud to continue partnering with U of W CRC 2.0 on bringing that transformational project to fruition. In closing, I want to point out that Centerventure's audited statements will show that we were able to operate with a small surplus last year and believe we were set up for even more success in 2026. While we've been honored to play a role in supporting Winnipeg's initial Housing First project at the Bell Hotel, we also believe the ongoing operations are not only not a part of our core mandate, they are also better suited under the care and control of Main Street project. To that end, we are in the process of transferring ownership to the Bell to Main Street project and know that they will be good stewards of the property and the tenants for years to come. I'm happy to take your questions.
Thank you, Rochelle. Councillor Chambers.
Yes, thank you for your presentation this morning. Through the many years, there's been many developments in the downtown area that have been somewhat designed to bring more density downtown. Portage Place was designed and built with that in mind, the Hydro Building to bring staff downtown, True North to bring hockey downtown, the WAG Gala and Kamayork. But each of these initiatives and developments that were designed to bring traffic downtown haven't done that. In a sense, we consider our downtown our business zone, but in reality, in order for us to bring, safety and, vibrancy back to downtown, it is about residential. I mean, we have the 9 to 5, the business crowd. It's about the 5 to 9 and making sure that, we can support businesses downtown through residential dwellings. How many more units downtown is Centerventure, within the foreseeable future, looking to implement in our downtown area? And again, to address housing, from the perspective of deeply affordable, as well as dwellings for young families or young persons that want to start out but want to live downtown.
Exactly. That's a great question. And we know that it's going to take multiple developments throughout all areas of the downtown. We have one of the largest geographically spaced downtowns. And so it's a real challenge to continue to activate each corner of our downtown. But through targeted redevelopment, we are seeing that there are potentially 4,000 units coming online that are either in development right now or have achieved their permits and will be developed in the coming years. And so by even 2028, we're going to see 4,000 more units in the downtown, which could bring upwards of 10,000 new people that would call downtown home. So that would get us to about 28,000 people living in the downtown. And we know that to achieve the goals that we have talked about of creating that vibrancy and safety and having a 24/7 livable community. We need to see about 40,000 people calling downtown Winnipeg home. And so the push is on to continue to create that residential density. A lot of people have asked me, where are we going to build these units? And when we look around at starting with some of the vacant office buildings, we think that that is a prime target for conversion to residential. And so we're going to continue to press on in that way. And we look at the 5 vacant heritage buildings that we're working on right now. That's going to create 600 new units, potentially, 12 to 1,500 new people will come downtown and be living in one of these vacant, restored, or the formerly vacant, restored heritage building. And there's more to come. We know that if we offer a second intake for that program because of its popularity, we know that we'll have significant uptake.
And so with that comes the needs for amenities. One of the major amenities would be a grocery store. Plans to attract a major supplier, a grocery store to the downtown area?
There definitely is plans to look at more amenities in the West Exchange, the East Exchange, and of course, the downtown in the Shed District. And so to that end, in collaboration with some of the work that we're doing on Graham Avenue with the Reimagining Graham pilot, you may recall that CentreVenture administered the Shed agreement in the early part of in 2010, 2012. And there's some residual funds of $1.4 million in CentreVenture's account in restricted funds for the revitalization of Shed. And we're working collaboratively right now with the province, who's a stakeholder in that Shed program, as well as the city, to come up with a program to revitalize and retain and recruit new retail into that Shed area. And we're hopeful. We don't want to make any presumptions because we haven't rolled the program out. It will be rolled out in the coming months, but we're hopeful that that will attract some activity and some of those amenities to the area.
Last question. My ward includes the University of Manitoba. Since being elected, concerns from the area in Port Richmond of illegal rooming housing and the impacts of that to the neighborhood. Federal government has come out with a moratorium on foreign international students and immigrants coming into Canada. Just wondering if the University of Winnipeg downtown is experiencing a downtrend which would free up accommodations in the downtown area based on international students who might be living in proximity to the University of Winnipeg. And if there has been any noticeable change with respect to international students in downtown and their impact on dwellings in the downtown area.
That's a great question, and certainly one that I'm continuously addressing with our downtown stakeholder partners at U of W and Red River College. But I do know anecdotally that we haven't seen a decrease in the need for housing because the pent-up demand has not been satisfied yet. And we're working right now with Red River College on ways in which they can address their demand. They know a lot of our students that currently, even if they attend the Notre Dame campus, would prefer to live downtown, and they're expanding their Princess campus. And we do want to see vibrant student housing being built in the downtown adjacent to the Red River College. And hopefully with coordinated efforts with transit, there could be a way to even pull some of the Notre Dame residents or the Notre Dame students who live in that area that want to live in the downtown, that can be accommodated. So we're not anticipating there being more houses than students wanting to live in them in the short future. But it's something for us to keep our eye on with our partners.
Yeah, and the reason why I raise that is because I was in a meeting the other day and talking about the 2 apartment or student housing buildings on the corner of Bison Drive and Pembina Highway. That occupancy is less than 50%, and partly as a result of the lower numbers for international students. So.
I think the population in downtown, the mixed use buildings, because most of the buildings in downtown, the new buildings, housing buildings are mixed use. And so there's just such a demand that we're not seeing that level of vacancy in any of the units coming online in the downtown.
Thank you.
Any early feedback from folks about the, I guess this is more probably for the biz and others, but just the changes to transit that started this week, if there's been any notice of it at all?
Yeah, Center Venture hasn't been on the ground with information and comments about the revitalized or
Right.
reinvigorated transit system.
We made some tweaks on Sunday, so that's just, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions for Michelle? Okay, well, thank you so much. We really appreciate it, and lots of exciting things going on. I mean, I really felt, pre-COVID, everything was going, very well for the downtown, and COVID was definitely a step back when it came to development and the progress in our downtown. But again, just incremental. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so the report's here. Does somebody want to move this one for information, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilor Chambers. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. EDW, RED.
WED.
Jeff, you got it last time. You did so well.
I know.
Oh,
WEDT.
EDWT, yes.
Winnipeg Economic Development Tours. Winnipeg EDT.
Morning, Ryan. How are you?
We're just getting our deck set up here.
Yeah, it's all ready. Here. Oh, thank you.
Thank you for your help. Councilor Orlico, just confirming you can see. Great. Shall I go ahead, Jeff?
Please go ahead. Good morning, Ryan.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Thanks very much for the time today, as always. And I think, as most of you know, my name is Ryan Kuffner, President and CEO of Winnipeg Economic Development and Tourism, or Winnipeg EDT, as we call ourselves. Again, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Chair, as well as the members of the committee for the opportunity to be here with you today to share the progress that we've made for our city through Q3 and Q4 of 2025. We're going to highlight what we're learning, where collaboration with the city will be most important moving forward. And with this being my last time presenting, as many of you know, I'll be stepping away. I also wanted to thank you, all of you, and particularly yourself, Jeff, Mr. Chair, for the privilege of working together over these past several years to advance our city's economy. I step away with great confidence in the strength of our team, a couple of which are here today, that will continue delivering results for Winnipeg, guided by our new multi-year strategy, reflecting an organization that's ready for what's next. Today, I am joined, as I promised in past sessions, by two leaders from our executive team who are helping to drive this work forward. Natalie Thiessen, who I think you know, Vice President of Tourism, and Amanda McDonald, Vice President of Business Development and Market Intelligence. They're going to walk us through a few of the key priorities within our new strategy, major events and investment readiness, both critical initiatives in driving citywide prosperity. Because in today's environment, while we can't control the global forces that are shaping our economy, we can control how ready Winnipeg is to compete for the opportunities ahead. And to understand why that readiness matters so much now, it's important to start with the environment that we're operating in today. We continue to grapple with heightened global economic uncertainty, geopolitical tensions, rising fuel prices, and I know are also affecting the city, and affordability. Trade dynamics and shifting travel patterns are reshaping how cities like Winnipeg compete for investment, talent, and visitors. Across Canada, economic growth has slowed, and many economists are warning of a recession risk, creating uncertainty for businesses and investors. For Winnipeg, that uncertainty is felt most acutely in sectors that are closely tied to global trade. Some of our long-standing commercial pillars, particularly export-oriented manufacturing and related industries, are more exposed to tariffs, supply chain pressures, and shifts in international demand. While Winnipeg's diversified economy helps provide resilience, these pressures reinforce the importance of staying competitive and ready to respond as global conditions evolve. At the same time, there are some real opportunities here, particularly in tourism. While Canada is seeing fewer Americans cross our borders overall, Manitoba is bucking that trend with an increase in year-over-year US visitation. This is a critical market for Winnipeg, with US travelers accounting for over a quarter of our visitor spending. With next month kicking off the start of peak season travel, we need to be ready now to welcome them and capture the economic impact that they bring with them. What's particularly encouraging is that local sentiment is staying true to our friendly Manitoba roots, and our welcoming message remains strong. A recent Probe Research survey with our own proprietary question shows 87% of Winnipeggers agree we should warmly welcome American visitors despite recent trade tensions. That matters because a welcoming city is part of the product that we sell. As we head into Tourism Week next week, we'd encourage Council and the Mayor to help amplify that message on social media, that tourism is critically important for growing our economy. Our communications team will support you by providing key measures and content, and we're in touch with the Mayor's office to that end. This is exactly where Winnipeg Economic Development and Tourism plays a critical role. By bringing together tourism and economic development under one roof, we serve as a one-stop shop for the city and private sector, allowing us to compete against other cities in a more coordinated and strategic way. Our one agency model means that we can respond more nimbly to the moment we're in, and in a way that few other cities can. In fact, Winnipeg is the only major Canadian city operating with this integrated model. Since launching our Aligned corporate brand, Winnipeg Economic Development and Tourism is increasingly being recognized among economic development and tourism agencies across our country for our modern, progressive, and competitive model. This is positioning our organization and our city as a leader in how we integrate economic development and tourism together. We're also seeing that momentum build here at home, with our organizational awareness increasing from 63% to 82% in the local market. So while others are just beginning to explore this approach, we're already leveraging it as our competitive advantage to position Winnipeg confidently on the global stage. And we're seeing that advantage translate into real, measurable impact for our city, which is what we'll explore next in our highlights from Q3 and Q4 2025. Tourism is one of the most tangible ways we deliver impact for Winnipeg, attracting visitors, elevating our city's global profile, and securing major events and conferences that support local businesses and strengthen our economy. The success of this work is made possible by strong partnerships across sectors, with the city being a critical ally. And I just want to take a moment to thank you again for your support. The Grey Cup last November is a standout example. Thanks to the support of partners like the city, the week-long Grey Cup Festival generated an estimated $90 million in total economic impact, while showcasing Winnipeg to audiences across the country. In fact, our team leveraged the Grey Cup to host VIP clients as part of a final stage bid for the Junos, demonstrating our city's capacity to deliver world-class experiences. Business events are another key driver of economic growth, and positioning Winnipeg to attract these events is a core part of the work that we do as an agency. Shortly before the Grey Cup, our team hosted a familiarization, or FAM as we call them, for national and international clients, highlighting Winnipeg's venues and hotels, as well as our culinary, wellness, and wilderness offerings. The FAM helped secure the 2027 Canadian Nutrition Society Conference, which will bring in new visitors to our city and generate more than $1 million in total economic impact. At the same time, we're filling our sport event pipeline. The Sport Event Forum we co-hosted in November brought together leaders from across the province to align efforts, build relationships, and identify new opportunities to host regional, national, and international events here in Winnipeg. Our work to promote Winnipeg is also gaining strong traction. In October, our Creative Heart of the North campaign earned the Economic Developers Association of Canada's Marketing Canada Award for promotional video, and we're incredibly proud of that. Launched in key markets like Los Angeles, the Bay Area, and Montreal, the campaign showcased Winnipeg's creative talent and competitive advantages across our film, gaming, and interactive digital media sectors, helping position our city as a serious player in this space. We're also seeing growing national and global interest in Winnipeg's story, a story we tell every day to help attract visitors and improve perceptions of our city. By actively seeking out and securing impactful media coverage, we help shape how people perceive Winnipeg, highlighting its vibrancy, culture, and unique experiences through hundreds of articles and media mentions. In the last 2 quarters, our team received 50 media inquiries, almost the same volume as the total requests that we handled in all of 2024. This matters because this growth is a strong indicator that our agency is increasingly being seen as a trusted voice on tourism and the economy. Over the last 2 quarters, we continue to deliver strong results in our work to grow businesses here, providing 233 services to local companies that supported $36 million in capital investment and 470 net new full-time jobs. For example, we supported International Truck Body in advancing a $12 million expansion and creating 100 jobs. Our team helped connect funding, partners, and move the project forward with benefits across the local supply chain. In October, we brought together industry leaders through a roundtable at Magellan Aerospace to shape how we most strategically market the strengths of Winnipeg's aerospace and defense sector, including long-term career opportunities within this future-driven industry. We also celebrated Standard Aero's announcement of a $15 million expansion, creating 250 skilled jobs, with our team supporting the company throughout the process. Our ongoing success in business retention, expansion, and attraction is directly tied to the strength of our investment project pipeline. By the end of Q4, we had 334 leads generated, 442 prospects identified, and 86 qualified opportunities in active development. Over the past 2 quarters, we've taken a proactive and diversified approach to international markets, expanding beyond the US to position Winnipeg in front of investors through targeted missions in Europe, Asia, and Latin America. This is opening doors in sectors like agri-food, advanced manufacturing, and creative industries. Because if we're not in those rooms and building those relationships, Winnipeg isn't being considered for the opportunities that create jobs and grow our economy, as well as city tax revenues. As we build our investment pipeline, talent is what allows these opportunities to land and grow here in Winnipeg. That's why we strengthen connections between employers and job seekers by administering the Work in Manitoba job portal, which is fully funded by the province of Manitoba. We closed out 2025 with more than 130,000 job seekers and 2,200 Manitoba employers on the platform since its launch. And since April 2024, Work in Manitoba has helped facilitate well over 1,000 hires, real jobs filled, connecting employers with the talent that they need. In October, we also hosted Magnet Network Live, convening local leaders and national trailblazers, positioning Winnipeg at the forefront of conversations around talent, productivity, and the future of work as AI in particular rapidly evolves our technological landscape. At the end of 2025, we wrapped our 5-year Real Impact campaign, supported by Winnipeg's business community with the goal of advancing long-term economic growth. Private sector investment is a strong signal from the business community that we're on the right track. It also complements the city's funding, helping public dollars go further. The Real Impact campaign raised $5.2 million in private sector investment into our agency to support the work that we do, creating lasting value for our city, including securing more than $1.2 billion in capital investment through our efforts. To put that into perspective, that's the equivalent of building nearly 6 Canada Life Centers, while also creating 10,130 jobs over the past 5 years, enough to fill every major theater in Winnipeg with people still waiting outside. These outcomes demonstrate what's possible when we align public and private investment, and that the foundation we're building on through our new strategy. Since we last met, we launched our new multi-year strategy at Winnipeg Forward, our signature event in November. We also introduced our revamped corporate partnership program that will strengthen private sector engagement in complement to the public funding from the city and province that supports our work. At its core, this strategy is about making Winnipeg a place where people want to live, work, invest, and visit. It's our roadmap for navigating the complex and uncertain geopolitical conditions we've talked about today, guiding us in making sure the city is ready to compete and thrive in a rapidly changing environment. We've grounded our strategy in 3 clear goals. 1, to boost Winnipeg's competitiveness. 2, elevate our profile. And 3, advance Winnipeg together so that prosperity reaches every corner of our city. Today, we're going to focus on 2 priority areas within our strategy where we see tremendous opportunity to move the needle: major events and investment readiness. I'm now going to pass it over to my colleague, Natalie Thiessen, who's going to walk us through how we're putting our strategy into action by competing for major events.
Thanks, Ryan. Good morning, bon matin. Nice to see everyone. It's a pleasure to be back here with you to talk about a really powerful economic engine, which is often unrecognized: tourism, and one that I'm very passionate about. Tourism is an engine that brings new dollars to our city, supporting local businesses, creating jobs, and fueling long-term growth. And major events are among the most effective tools we have for attracting visitors and shining a light on the very best of who we are. Just as importantly, they help build community pride and connection, making our city better for the people who live here too. That's why our new strategy included a dedicated major events priority initiatives. We're working with partners across government and industry to take a more collaborative and strategic approach to identifying, attracting, and hosting events that deliver the greatest economic and community impact. The work builds upon a clear provincial direction with the 2023 Manitoba Tourism Strategy, identifying major events as a key catalyst for growth. Financial support from the province is essential in complementing the City of Winnipeg's investment via the Special Event Marketing Fund as we move towards a more coordinated approach. As other provinces increase their investment in a very highly competitive space, our agency's role is to ensure Winnipeg is positioned to compete, but also to win the events that showcase our city to the world and leave lasting economic impact and cultural legacies. But here's the thing: major events don't just land in Winnipeg on their own. Securing them requires a deliberate multi-year process, from identifying opportunities and building relationships to bidding, hosting site visits, and also the delivery of hosting a successful event. To compete successfully, cities need to be ready at every stage of that sales cycle, and each step within it requires a coordination across partners, including the city, province, venues, industry, community stakeholders, to demonstrate that Winnipeg is ready to host on a national and global stage. That kind of preparation is exactly how we secured the opportunity we'll highlight next. Last month, together with our partners, the City of Winnipeg, the Province of Manitoba, and CARAS, which stands for the Canadian Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences, we are proud to announce that Winnipeg will be host to the 56th Juno Awards in 2027, bringing Canada's biggest night in music back to Winnipeg for the first time since 2014. Long overdue, if I must say. Events like this is exactly that kind of work that we work tirelessly to compete for, giving Winnipeg a national platform to showcase the vibrant festival spirit, prairie hospitality that we're known for, and the dynamic arts community that defines our city. We want to recognize the mayor's leadership, the City Events Special Events Office as champion of this effort, along many other city employees' support throughout the bid process. That level of collaboration was key in winning the opportunity to welcome artists, industry leaders, and fans from across the country with an estimate of 28,000 attendees and expected over 4,000 room nights. What makes the Junos special is that it's much more than a single night. It's about Juno Week, this multi-day citywide festival taking the celebration beyond the awards stage into the streets of Winnipeg. Juno Week will electrify our entire city and most especially our downtown with dozens of live performances and fan experiences, from transforming Graham Avenue into Juno Way to hosting the world's largest gathering of Indigenous music leaders. All this adds up to a huge boost to our city, gathering national exposure and generating approximately 17 million in total economic impact from the week events alone. That means hotel room nights filled, restaurants buzzing, venues activated, and visitors exploring our neighborhoods. As you saw from the previous slide, winning an event like this takes years of planning and preparation. And it's a highly coordinated process. Our team began working on this bid last June, bringing together a leadership group from the City of Winnipeg, the province of Manitoba, Manitoba Film and Music, and Winnipeg's leaders of the music, tourism, and events sectors. We led bi-weekly meetings throughout the bid process, helping align our partners and to build momentum needing to successfully power an event of this level and national significance and cultural impact. Our committee also included leaders from Manitoba's Indigenous music ecosystem to help ensure Juno Week elevates First Nations, Inuit, and Métis artists, creating lasting opportunities for generations of Indigenous music leaders. We also worked with partners across the city to demonstrate that Winnipeg is ready with the infrastructure, venues, and hospitality capacity to host a national event of this scale. Backed by strong letters of support from multi-levels of government, industry partners, and local community, we did what Winnipeg does best, working together and showing a unified commitment to delivering world-class experiences. Another key to our success was the Special Events Tourism Fund, which our agency stewards on behalf of the City of Winnipeg through the visitor-generated accommodation tax. This incentive mechanism is critical to successfully securing events. Through this fund, the city committed up to $908,000 to support the bid, along strong financial commitment from the province and key partners. And it's a great example of a collaborative funding approach we know is critical for event acquisition. To bring this story to life, we created a bid video featuring voices from leaders from across the community, including the mayor, the premier, leaders from Manitoba music and film, with beloved artists like we know Fred Penner, Begonia, and Chantal Kreviazig, and sharing why Winnipeg is the great place to host this Canada's biggest celebration. And if you've not had the opportunity to see it, unfortunately, because of the format of the presentation, we'd be happy to send it along for your review. Toward the end of the bid process, our team strategically leveraged Grey Cup Week, as Ryan mentioned, to host CARIS representatives in Winnipeg. The perfect moment to show how our city shines to host this national event, welcoming red carpet music celebration. Led by our team, this fan tour gave our clients an unforgettable firsthand look at how Winnipeg is such a great host and instrumental in bringing the Junos Awards back. We know events like these create a powerful legacy. They're economic drivers, visitor magnets, and brand builders for our city. And we've seen what's possible when the city, province, and community partners work together to bring these opportunities to life. Thank you to the City of Winnipeg, the Special Events Office, to help bring this event home and providing the necessary funding through the SCTF Fund. The spirit of collaboration is exactly what makes Winnipeg such a strong host city. We want to see this type of partnership continue to gain momentum. So as we prepare for Juno Week in 2027, we're asking for your support to help ensure Winnipeg is ready to shine. That includes working together on a consolidated early spring cleanup, conducting a downtown audit focused on safety, cleanliness, and beautification, and we know we can't do this alone, and collaborating to manage construction and road closures during this event. As we continue competing for major events, we know this work requires a high level of confidentiality. The Juno's Bid is a strong example where we were advancing a significant opportunity, but weren't able to share the details broadly across city councillors to employees at that time. That's why enabling an in-camera session with council remains important, allowing us to provide timely updates and work together with opportunities in flight. If we want to keep winning events like the Junos, the message is simple. Winnipeg needs to be ready, because cities that win are ones prepared to deliver when opportunities appear. I'm now going to pass you to my colleague Amanda, who's going to share more about how readiness puts our city on the map for investment. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Natalie. And good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me for my first time here. Pleasure to be here, and I'm excited to talk with you about one of our city's most critical areas for growth, investment readiness, or one of the most critical factors to enable that growth, if you will. So at the last meeting of this committee, my colleague Alberto spoke about how we're expanding Winnipeg's global reach, building relationships with investors and putting Winnipeg on the radar of companies in markets like Europe and Asia. Those efforts are starting to pay off. Winnipeg is now part of conversations we simply weren't a few years ago. But that progress raises an important question. When we compete for major investments, the kind that brings hundreds of jobs and hundreds of millions in capital, is Winnipeg ready to deliver? The answer isn't no, but we're not quite where we need to be yet. That's why our new strategy includes a priority initiative focused on investment readiness. We're working with government and industry partners to build tools, resources, and coordination needed to prepare sites and communities for new investment. Simply put, we need to make investing in Winnipeg effortless. If a company wants to build here, grow here, innovate here, our job should be clear. Help them find the right place to invest their capital. But for this work to succeed, the City of Winnipeg does have a critical role to play. We've been very pleased to work with Matt Driver to advance this work. In today's competitive global market, companies evaluate cities based on factors that often sit within municipal control, such as land availability, infrastructure and zoning, and permitting timelines that allow a project to move quickly from concept to construction. Today, more than half of global investment decisions are influenced by site selectors. These are consultants hired by businesses to identify the best locations for their company's major projects. The cities that make their shortlist are the ones that show they're ready. Winnipeg has many strengths. We have a strong workforce, diversified economy, and available land. Centerport comes to mind immediately as a great example of development in action and speaks to the opportunity we have as the greater Winnipeg region to continue to spur economic development in a strategic and proactive manner. But we've also identified 5 key areas for improvement so that when site selectors evaluate Winnipeg, they see a city that's ready to move efficiently. First, we need to better organize and showcase our investment assets into a centralized platform. Currently, available sites and opportunities are fragmented across multiple platforms, or they're not visible to decision makers at all, which slows momentum. We need to make it easy for a site selector to quickly assess what Winnipeg has available and ready for investment. Jurisdictions like Portage la Prairie are already doing this well, with a live interactive hub that allows investors to easily explore available land and visualize where their business could grow. Ontario has also seen success implementing a site certification program that has driven large-scale investments in their jurisdiction. Second, we need a clear and shared definition of what investment ready truly means, benchmarked against global standards. Third, we need strong coordination across our partners to quickly and confidently move investment opportunities forward from lead to close in a streamlined way. This includes working closely with municipal and provincial authorities to ensure that the infrastructure, utilities, and permitting processes surrounding these opportunities can support those major investments quickly and efficiently. Preventing delays in this process increases investor confidence in Winnipeg and our ability to deliver. And finally, we need to strengthen our approach to competitive incentives for strategic, right-sized, and right-fit projects. For investors, this isn't only about what we offer, but how clearly and swiftly we can deliver it. Aligning with other jurisdictions and moving quickly will be key to staying competitive. So what do we do next? We've identified 2 key pillars. The first is creating a centralized asset hub, a globally accessible online platform that strategically showcases Winnipeg's high-value, investment-ready sites. These opportunities would be vetted against global standards so site selectors and investors can quickly understand what our city has to offer, increasing our chances of being selected for investment. The second pillar is developing a unified investment readiness model. It's a coordinated approach across partners that streamlines how investors engage with our jurisdiction. The goal is simple. When an investor interacts with Winnipeg, they should experience one team and one comprehensive process that addresses key considerations like permitting, utilities, and infrastructure. Because ultimately, we want to leave every investment prospect with a compelling image of Winnipeg that is second to none. To do that effectively, we also need the ability to engage council at the right moments, as my colleague Natalie spoke to, including having appropriate mechanisms to share time-sensitive and confidential investment opportunities. In today's environment, investment decisions move very quickly, and cities that are ready are the ones that win. The same principle applies across everything we've talked about today so far, whether we're bidding to host a global event like the Junos or competing to attract a major investment project. We want Winnipeg to be able to say yes and deliver. Because the reality is, we're competing with other cities at every step, from capturing the attention of businesses to delivering information at the speed they expect. If we're too slow or fall short, those opportunities move to another jurisdiction. They don't wait for us. And that's why alignment across partners is so important. We're engaging actively with ecosystem stakeholders and industry to advance this investment readiness initiative. And the city's leadership is essential to making it succeed. So today, we're asking for your partnership in 3 key areas. The first is to invest in more shovel-ready pre-service land that allows us to work nimbly and can be the difference between attracting a major project or watching it go elsewhere. We know that the city has already identified opportunities to bring more of this land online. We're asking you to help advance that work by bringing forward 1 or 2 high-potential sites that could be prioritized, pre-serviced, and actively marketed. So we're ready when those big opportunities come calling. Second is supporting faster timelines, so Winnipeg can move at the speed investors expect. We need to lean into the yes culture the mayor is building, or which he spoke to at the State of the City the other month. That means being ready to engage with investors, find solutions when challenges arise, and move opportunities forward quickly, so our city can remain competitive when those decisions are being made. And thirdly, we need mechanisms for in-camera briefings, so we can share that time-sensitive and confidential investment opportunities with the city and support informed decision-making. Because when we get this right, we position Winnipeg not just to compete for investment, but to win it. We want to power a strong economy that benefits us all. Ryan, you.
Thanks, Amanda. Thanks, Natalie, as well. I've just got a bit of a close here, and then we'll wrap up. But obviously, we've talked some time ago about spotlighting a few key areas as time goes on, and that's a continued effort. And as I step back in a way, I also wanted to ensure that you have a sense of the bench strength of our organization. We've got an incredibly strong executive team. I hope you've seen that over time as I find my place here. And so this is a showcase of that as well today. Excuse me 1 second. Looking ahead. So as we look ahead to the months that we're focused on, which are full of potential volatility, there's a great deal for what we need to be ready for. With CUSMA review in July being a significant reminder that global trade conditions can shift quickly with real implications for Winnipeg. For our export-driven sectors, including manufacturing, transportation, and logistics, even small changes to tariffs, market access, or supply chains can influence investment decisions and business confidence at the local level. And I know you experience that as a city every day as well, so we don't have to tell you that. We also need to be ready for the opportunities in front of us, including the mayor's vision of growing a unified sky economy, strengthening Winnipeg's position as the largest aerospace cluster in Western Canada and the third largest in the country. Our recent survey shows strong interest from local companies across sectors to participate in Canada's growing defence procurement opportunities. But they've also flagged barriers, like long procurement cycles and not knowing where to find those opportunities or connections to prime contractors, underscoring where coordinated support will be most critical. With Canada significantly increasing defence spending in the coming years, including related to our two bases here, Shiloh and 17 Wing, our goal is to ensure Winnipeg and Manitoba companies are ready to compete and benefit from these opportunities. That includes working in close partnership with industry to better showcase Winnipeg locally, nationally, and globally, including co-creating a new video resource that will highlight the scale, history, and world-class capabilities of our aerospace sector. We're also seeing how AI is rapidly reshaping and disrupting our economy and workforce, though unevenly. While some local sectors are making gains and automating tasks and allowing workers to focus on higher value activities, others are lagging behind. That's why our team makes sure local companies have the talent and tools they need to thrive, including building on our partnership with Magnet to equip senior leaders to address responsible AI adoption and productivity challenges. AI is also changing how we compete for visitors. As more travelers and businesses use generative AI tools to plan their trips, destinations like Winnipeg need to be visible across the entire digital ecosystem that AI draws from. Our team is strengthening our internal expertise to ensure that we're optimizing Winnipeg not only for search engines, but in LLM-generated content so our city is easily discoverable. We're also seeing an opportunity to attract what Destination Canada, our federal tourism agency, calls highly engaged guests, travelers who stay longer, spend more, and in the case of Winnipeg, primarily seek out outdoor and authentic cultural experiences. This insight is helping shape our refreshed leisure marketing strategy, allowing us to focus our efforts on the visitors who deliver the greatest economic value and are most likely to connect with what Winnipeg does best. We've shared with you today about how we're moving the strategy forward, and now we'd like to talk to you about how we move our city forward. Because the reality is opportunities and decision makers don't wait, and if we're not ready, they go elsewhere. As a council, you have a critical role in making sure our city is ready to compete and win. So today, we're asking for your leadership in 4 key areas. First, prepare Winnipeg to host major events, as Natalie spoke to, ensuring our city is clean, safe, and welcoming, ready to deliver on opportunities like the Junos. Second, advance investment readiness by bringing more shovel-ready land to market, including city-owned properties, and speeding up timelines to increase investor confidence. Third, enable in-camera briefings so we can act quickly on time-sensitive opportunities for investment in major events while keeping you up to speed. And finally, we'd like your confirmation of support for the city advancing these key priorities. Our team will then work with the relevant officials to ensure they move forward, and will provide updates on progress at our fall meeting in a more dynamic, interactive, and engaged way with this committee. Thank you to all of you in the room for your continued support and ongoing commitment to Winnipeg's success. Together, we have a remarkable opportunity to shape the next chapter of this city's story, to build a Winnipeg that's ready to compete and win. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation this morning. Any questions, Councillor Orlico or Councillor Eller? None? Ryan, I want to take this opportunity to thank you for your many years of service to the city of Winnipeg and the province of Manitoba. Your previous position as a trade commissioner and being able to bring business here to our province and to our city are commendable. I've had the opportunity to work with you even prior to my role here at City Council, and always remark on your professionalism and your just your enthusiasm for the city of Winnipeg. So thank you very much for your continued years of service, and I wish you very, very much success in the next chapter, wherever that is. And any comments from my colleagues along those lines?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation.
All right. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Counselor. It's been a pleasure to serve.
Yep. Okay, so we'll need a motion to accept this report as information.
All of that.
Thank you, Councillor Allard. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Move on to number 3, Winnipeg Police Service fourth quarter financial report. We'll welcome Jeffrey Wiggett to
Sorry,
the.
one second, Ryan, I just want to say thank you again for all of your time and energies, as CEO over the years, and again, all the very best in your future endeavors.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate that.
Sorry, I had to step away, but thank you.
Understand. You're an important guy. I'll get it.
Sorry, Councillor Chambers.
All right, we can take the chair.
Okay, we're moving on to report 3, Winnipeg Police Board, fourth quarter financial report.
Morning, Mr. Chair, Committee, Jeff Wiggett, Executive Director for the Winnipeg Police Board. I am here on behalf of the board to present the next 2 items, and if I may speak to them together,
Sure.
just in the interest of time. So I believe number 3 is the fourth quarter report of the Winnipeg Police Service.
Speak up a little bit.
Sorry, so number 3 on your agenda is the fourth quarter and year-end budget report for the Winnipeg Police Service. As that report notes, first, the $5.07 million expenditure management target was met in full, as well as an additional $1.7 million in savings beyond that to bring the police service under budget for the year. The report notes a couple of key factors that drove that, primarily a $2.1 million savings in overtime that's been attributed to a decrease in the number of homicide incidents that required investigative resources and demands on that front, as well as $1.9 million under the budget in salaries and benefits attributed to delays in the hiring process for professional staff. I just want to add a comment that's not written there in the report, but that's not an intentional delay in filling any positions. It's a reflection on the amount of time it takes to fill those and the steps that the service has to go through, background checks and that nature.
Good to know that, yeah.
So that's where those numbers come from.
So it's not a vacancy management.
No, it's just the sort of challenges that are faced in recruitment of some of those positions. Number 4 on your agenda is the fourth quarter and year-end budget report for the Winnipeg Police Board. I appreciate and thank the chair for bringing to our attention an understandable confusion on the report that was put forward by the board. There's a sort of confusion and misalignment between the funds noted in the first column of the report, the budgeted amounts versus the balancing remaining. What we find on a regular basis at the board, these quarterly reports that are prepared for us by the finance people at Campus Finance, they don't share the same bookkeeping line definitions that the board does and don't account for things like board member honorariums that we're required to pay. And so there's a sort of regular back and forth between what the board keeps track of and what fits into those definitions at the city. So we've provided an attachment on the agenda to reflect the budgeted amounts that the board was operating under and that the board keeps track of on a monthly basis to better sort of reflect where we take that total the council allocates actually through the city clerk's department and then is carved out to the police board to help sort of clear up that confusion. And I hope it does at the end of the day. Just under $2,500 under budget.
Not a lot of money, the whole thing, but just
we have
that wasn't nothing, so
yeah, no, very understandable. So we've asked Campus Finance to provide some more clear totals going forward. So hopefully when you see the first quarter update for 26, that'll but happy to take any questions on either.
So, yeah, professional governance support, actuals were $40,814. Budgeted 22. What was the overage?
Those were legal services that the board retained to complete the police chief recruitment process. I'll add just some commentary on that. The board does find there are instances where, because of the unique nature of the police board under provincial legislation, there are times where the board can rely on, for example, city legal services. There are also times where independent counsel is required. And so we do from time to time face one-off expenses that may not have been budgeted for.
And you budgeted 20,248 for strat planning. Consultations only used 2,700.
Yeah, so the professional governance costs came in fairly early in the year, and that meant we had to be very careful throughout the rest of the year with how we divvied up some of the money available to us. So the strategic planning efforts that the board undertook in 25 came after those professional services. We also include some room in that budget line for a public survey that the board can do every year. One was done in 24. We opted not to hire one out and did one in-house in 25 to realize some savings in that area.
Thank you.
No, and just again, through you back to the police service, being happy to see that they were able to, provide some savings back to us for 25. But yeah, appreciate it.
We understand it's part of a concerted effort through the ranks there to really keep an eye on overtime and make sure those resources are deployed intentionally and as needed.
So, yeah, just a quick question. So $1.7 million being returned. The service talked about a pilot project for body worn cameras. I mean, potentially this 1.7 could have been used to enhance that. Potentially.
I suppose in theory, yes. I don't have anything further to share in that regard of what that pilot project, the status of it, or what the future plans are. Certainly, it is something that comes with a expense both on the capital side and on the operating side. Those are things that the service is considering, and the board will consider as well if or when something comes before council for consideration.
Any other questions? So prepared to move on to these two reports. Are good. Sorry, Councillor Oliver, have them? No. Okay.
Can you do them separately, just so we can move them and
I'll move report 3.
Report 3. Okay, all's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. And report 4, we had an updated attachment there added. So if somebody can move this as amended.
Yep, so moved as amended.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Chambers. All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Thanks, Jeffrey.
Thank you.
Okay. South Winnipeg Rec.
All right, and joining us today are Rob Taylor and Brent Panuta.
Morning. Good morning. Good morning.
South Winnipeg Rec Campus, a little background, this obviously involves the Recreation Center Vocational School, as well as the Child Care Center. We're in a great spot right now, maybe not as of the report ending here in December 31st. We got delayed a month because SMC Finance was canceled last month, but our budget or our estimate for the project has increased from 129 million from 118 million. That is strictly for the provincial component, additional cost there to complete the vocational building and the daycare. And that will be, the plan is for that to be reimbursed by the province. Vocational building is as of this report was about 80% complete. I think we're sitting at about 90 to 95% complete as of today. So we're very near that with the estimate it'll be in service in September of 2026. Tender went out in December for this and it closed in February. And it's going up through the chain. Just reported to community services on Monday for the increased budget amount and the ability to award the contract. And that is about where we are on this project. It's been a long time coming to get here, but we're getting really close.
Councillor Olico.
I read in the report from the construction officer. One of the risks that we're pending out there is that the province is delaying or is not going as fast as we are. Correct me if I'm wrong. They have some outstanding bids that they're needing that may impact us, as the construction officer said, may impact us because we can't move forward until they get their pieces together. Is that accurate?
I don't believe it's accurate. We are managing the vocational building and the daycare on behalf of the province. They have committed to us that they will be covering the funding for those portions as well. So I don't know exactly what the chief construction officer was referring to. He's not here, unfortunately. I hate to speak for him.
He was supposed to be here at the meeting last month. Unfortunately, he can't be here today, but
Okay, well, it does say there, the time buffer remaining is limited, and then that's where he's coming from. So if that's not true, if that's not a problem you see, that's great. So you're telling me that the province side of the coin with the I think it was a daycare was the most pending one, is not impacting our timeline?
Correct. And Counselor, maybe I can speak to it more as the fact that this report end date was December 31st. So we would have actually met on this at the end of 2025. At that point, I'm not certain that we had commitment from the province that they would cover the additional funding. We have a letter dated February 26, 2026 that states they will cover the funding. So that could be what the chief construction officer.
That's right. Good, thank you.
Perfect. Any other questions on South Winnipeg? So we prepared to move this one? Okay, thank you, Councillor Allard. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Number 6, Pembina Highway Overpass at Abenuchi-Mikana.
Thank you. Okay, speaking to these two reports are Jason Ruby and Andrew Connell from
Okay.
Public Works.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning, how are you?
Good, very good. Don't like snow, but otherwise good.
Yeah. Looking forward to some warm weather so we can get to work this summer.
Yeah, I bet.
So thank you very much for having me today. This item number 6 is the Pembina Highway Overpass at Abenuchi-Mikana Rehabilitation and Related Works Project Update. This is the 4th report for period ending December 31st, 2025. So as we stand today, at the time of the report, the project remains on budget and on schedule. So the southbound works are substantially completed, with northbound works commencing this upcoming construction season. We're currently on track to hit total performance for the project October 16th, 2026, in advance of the Winter Classic. That was a question you had in the last meeting, which is currently scheduled for October 25th. Contingency remains adequate for the project at approximately $2.2 million. To date, to the date of this report, approximately $16.7 million has been expended on the $30.5 million project budget. Since the last report, the SIB funding has been secured. Northbound works are anticipated to commence next month in May, weather permitting. And risks for the projects, the current risks remaining for the project include traffic congestion due to works, as well as utility schedule risk or various utility relocations required for the project. And that includes the reports on Pembina.
Councillor Chambers?
A lot of work going on in that area. Of course, there is the, just on Abenuchi-Mikana eastbound, they're working on reestablishing the sewer lines underneath the Red River. How does that impact the construction on Pembina Highway?
So this year's scope of work will include some roadworks on the ramps from the overpass onto Abenuchi on the east side, so northbound to westbound, northbound to eastbound. We'll have to coordinate with that project team for any required lane closures. However, we have been in touch with them and don't anticipate any issues at this time.
I'll move public service recommendation, please.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Lajmodier.
Okay, so thank you. This is item number 7, Lajmodi Twin Overpass Rehabilitation Project. Report number 2 for period ending December 31st, 2025. So I'll just start with the overall scope of work for the project. So scope of work includes the renewal of the northbound and southbound structures over the CP main line, as well as pavement renewals from Almain to Grassy, including the overpass ramps and a few new AT connections on both Concordia and Lajmodier. So the project currently remains on schedule, with the southbound works anticipated to be completed in 2026, with northbound works commencing and concluding in 2027, with some deficiency and outstanding works into 2028. Since the last report, several contracts have been awarded, namely the construction contract. Part 1 of this contract was awarded to PCL, who was the lowest qualified bidder. So just a bit of background, this contract was envisioned to be awarded in 2 parts. The first part's been awarded. The CAO has delegated authority to award for this contract project up to $45 million, so long as there's
budgets available. Part one was awarded on November 26, 2025. Part two is currently in the process of being awarded. The contracts are within the CO's award authority and there's sufficient budget for the projects. However, with the award of this contract, it will largely commit the budget for this project, so there'll be minimal contingency remaining. At this stage in the project, we don't have an appropriate contingency for the project. So there are some options in order to bolster the budgets and manage the potential for increased project costs if they become realized. So one potential option is to leverage potential federal grant for active transportation that was made on this project. Other opportunities include aligning some additional budget from the Regional Streets Renewal Program. This project is funded partly by the Regional Local Street Renewal. So as that's a program, it's a pool of funds. There's anticipated to be overages and underages on the projects, and where we identify surplus funds, there's an opportunity to align that into the project to address anticipated costs for the project.
So the projects are awarded if there's some room we can potentially move it in here.
Correct. So right now, part two of the contract is currently making its way to the CAO for award. Other additional contracts that were awarded during this time were to CPKC for works related to flagging, signal cable relocation, and project management services. Key risks for the project includes lack of appropriate contingency as discussed, traffic congestion, and coordination with CPKC. We are working to manage those risks actively. And that concludes the comments for this report.
What's the schedule for the repaving of the various lanes between Grassy and Reinders in terms of what's being done this year versus next?
Yeah, so it will be in alignment with whichever structure we're working on. So currently we're on the southbound structure, so we would anticipate, or we'll be undertaking the southbound pavement works this year, with northbound following with the northbound structure.
It will be possible places changing while work's being done, or how?
Yeah, there'll be some adjustments through the project. It will also have some lane at a time closures in order to facilitate the works, kind of how we would normally do it in the absence of the crossover system.
Are you able to still maintain the north lanes? There's some pretty crazy potholes at the moment.
We'll have to assess the paving condition, and if necessary, we'll do some repairs on it in order to facilitate the construction.
Thank you very much. Any other questions on this one? Councillor Orlando? Yeah.
So regarding the contingency and the possible options of getting federal funding for the, I guess, additional funding for the, correct me if I'm wrong, the active transportation, or using our regional streets reserve. I guess my question is, how does that? This is if you did that, that's not planned work for that money. If you added that, if you took that money from the regional street reserve, or if you took that from the AT, we have an AT plan. We have our regional streets kind of mapped out for a while. When would we know if you need to do that? I guess, who decides who goes bye-bye? What AT projects are not going to be funded, if that's the case? And B, what regional streets would not be funded to offset this contingency issue that we have?
Okay, so the regional local streets program operates as a pool of projects, and things are budgeted on a best estimate of project costs. We expect, because there is no cost of estimate going in there, we expect some projects to come in a little bit under, and other projects to come in a little bit older or a little bit over. So on balance, we believe will balance out on an overall basis. So right now, we're anticipating that the overages could be covered within kind of the general contingency of the program, and that we're not looking to cancel any projects to on these.
And what about the active transportation one? I know there's many councillors waiting for active transportation in their own neighborhoods.
No, we're not.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, part of the additional original budget adjustment from the $30 million budget was what was due to additional active transportation into this project. And again, we're not looking to take any active transportation out of this project, nor are we canceling any other projects anywhere else.
Perfect. Thank you very much. That's good.
Okay. Do you have a motion?
I'll move the report.
Okay, thanks, Council Allard. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, carried.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Centerport South Water and Sewer Servicing.
Okay, so the next four reports are all water and waste reports, and to speak to those are Cynthia Weed, Zweedone, and Tennessee Anchishan, who actually started with her new hat on Monday.
Congratulations.
Water and waste, so
They're testing
ask her
really
lots of
hard
hard questions, yeah. They asked her really hard questions today.
Qualified remodel. Let's go.
We can dive right into Centerport then.
Thanks.
So in this reporting period, we spent 6.6 million for a total of 51.3 million, or 70% of our amended budget. We did have a claim for an additional $176,000 for some boulder removal in the interceptor contract. At the time of this report, which goes to from November 1st to January 31st of this year, it was under review, but we have subsequently approved an additional $145,000 for due to extra or higher than anticipated boulders. In terms of schedule, our overall schedule remains unchanged from our last reporting period, with Q3 2026 as our substantial performance. We did have one contract, so we have 5 contracts within this, and our interceptor contract has been extended for about 6 weeks, and that was due to the contractor experiencing some colder weather, complicating ground conditions that resulted in some equipment issues, and it slowed down their tunneling operations. To make up some time, they did start with some 24-hour operations, so 2 crews. As of February, they did have to revert back to 1 crew due to some staffing issues. So
That was for which contract?
the interceptor contractor, I think, 3rd contract. So we are monitoring that contract quite closely. We do have some concerns because their productivity has slowed down, but they are still on track. And the other contracts are progressing well. In terms of risks, there was a new risk identified for the Manitoba Hydro requiring an easement from the city in order to bring power to the lift station. That has since been resolved and that risk is mitigated. We have power coming next month to that station. And another risk that we mitigated was for delivery of our motor control centers for the lift station. So they were a long lead item. But they have been ordered and they're in production, and we've mitigated the potential for schedule delays there.
And the lift station was,
That was the second contract, I believe. So there's a wastewater lift station.
what's the name of it?
It's gonna be a new one
Oh, it's
in
a new one.
Centerport, yeah.
Because I know that they're doing some work on a lift station in the south area of the city.
Yeah, this is a brand new lift
Right.
station that's being constructed. And the other 2 contracts, there's a force main contract and a feeder main contract, and they're progressing well. And I guess with that, if there's any questions on how those contracts are going.
Oh, Councilor Olco, sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, this is actually a question, the contract I got, this is a question to, I guess, the CFO. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe I am. City of Winnipeg's putting in $32.7 million into this project. Province is putting in $40 million. Is that correct?
Question?
That's on page whatever. That's page table 4.
Yes?
So this applies, Tracy, Ms. Graham, to all the projects. So we're investing taxpayers' money, property taxes, to this project of the tune of $32.7 million. And I've never seen it. I do have this very strong belief system going on right now, but I'll be leaving shortly, so it's a little late. But is that does this pay itself back? I know the mayor and some other people say, well, GDP, job growth, PST, whatever else they want to say. We have property tax. That's what we get. So the question I have is, do we have any understanding of how much property tax, I guess to be commercial, I'm not sure how much residential, would take to get that return of our investment back on property tax wise?
That's a good question, Counselor. As you know, that's historically, we've not looked at the economic benefit for all projects, but it's something that I think that's a valuable conversation for future projects. And we should look into that on especially the major capital projects.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I think we're going to have to, I do believe that's true.
I agree with you.
And again, we'll have council to figure out what those pieces of the puzzle go into that. And I think the mayor once told me, well, John, without jobs, we don't have housing. Well, I'm going, well, with more housing, it's costing us more money every time we build a new house. Growth isn't paying for growth. So I would definitely prefer to have that. I'll have that conversation at a later time, probably with Councillor Bawadi, because I believe it's an indicator for us to say how much investment should we, the city, because right here again, I think it's an economic one. The provincial government's going to do fine. They'll get all those kind of goodies back, but we're paying, it's about a 50-50, maybe 47, 45. We're paying 45% of a project that I believe is economically driven. I'm not sure what return we're going to get besides, yes, I get into the economics of it all and I understand jobs are important. But for City of Winnipeg, we're really struggling with revenue, and our revenue is property tax. So I will have that conversation with Jeff and maybe see how we can go forward to putting that figure into these documents, because I believe there is a misunderstanding or whatever we want to call it, that these type of projects are so wonderful for the City of Winnipeg because we're going to have all these new jobs, which I don't disagree, but economically, that's what we're here for. I'm not sure the return of our investment is going to be if you take jobs out of it regarding property tax. So I'll have that conversation at a later date.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just for clarity, Counselor, too, and it's be part of the conversation that you should raise is that this is funded out of rates versus property taxes, but I think the same sentiment applies. So
Exactly. I'm sorry. Fees. Again, it's even worse that it is out of fees because those fees are. And I did enjoy the hope and think for the next year that we're not going to raise these water rates on these poor people that have on fixed incomes that can't afford these fixed. So yes, property. It could be fees or it could be property tax. Fair enough.
Reading over the chief construction officer, page 8, he's flagging early risk on the last page, page 8. It says early risk on safety, quality, and readiness, and need watching on stakeholder and external dependencies.
No.
If there's any response to that, since it's written on the appendix.
We have been actively engaging with all the stakeholders on this project. So there's a number different, like the RMF Rosser, CPKC, Manitoba Transportation and Infrastructure, as well as some landowners. So there has been some very active engagement with stakeholders. And sorry, Councillor, your second.
Well, it's all under the general bullet of scope, schedule, and financial assurance, which starts on page 6 of the appendix, the chief construction officer.
Yeah.
And so there was early risk on the safety, quality, and readiness, and there was under pressure, the stakeholder and external dependencies, page 8.
I'm not entirely sure what the chief construction officer was speaking to on that. I can say that, you know, as you start commissioning, there might be some additional risk in projects, but we are actively monitoring that and we haven't had any safety issues on it.
Okay, thank you.
To follow up on that, if I may.
Yeah, please.
This is, I think, the second time we've heard this. Before my question regarding the construction officer report, and now this one as well. And it's not to be slight at all, but are the departments reading these reports? These reports from the construction officer, chief construction officer, and if they are, why aren't they prepared to reply back when we have these meetings?
I can say that I have read the report and in terms of replying to somebody else's report, it can be a bit difficult at times because you're not entirely sure what they're referring to.
Just to be, not to be rude, but if you had talked to them, you should have a reply back because you would have seen it's highlighted and it said this is the issue, so you would have had a conversation with them and discuss that. That's my assumption. That's a dialogue that goes on between those two. So I put it as a flag that I hope that we're really focusing on these. I'm very happy that we have the chief construction officer, and I'm really hoping that the departments are, when they come to these meetings, they go, okay, we both are on the same page. We had the conversation about readiness, and this is what he was talking about, or she, whatever it is. Yeah. So I know it's new. The system is new. I think it's well needed, and I'm personally very impressed with the process. It has the 2 layers process, but we need both sides to be working together on this one.
Okay. Councilor Orlando, again, we will try to, and I think generally have him at these meetings. But
Yeah, it is the intent
you're
for
right,
him to
the
be
public
here,
service
Counselor.
limits,
Yeah.
Okay.
I couldn't make today's meeting.
Right, I'm ready to move the administrative report.
Okay. All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Supik.
Okay, great. So this is the 45th report for the South End, and I'd like to start with good news. So I'm going to do that and say I'm happy to report that we have reached substantial completion on this project as of February 27th. So we can clearly see the finish line now, and also as we work to finish up the last few things, just as a reminder, we have been in compliance with our license conditions since Q3, Q4 of 2024. So while we're only getting to the end now, we are meeting our nutrient limits at the plant. In terms of financials, we spent $21.1 million in this reporting period, which goes till the end of January. And that gives us a total of $364 million. We do continue to work with our insurers on some of the losses and claims for media loss and delamination. And to date, we have received $231,000 related to the media claim. The contractor did submit a letter quantifying some COVID-19 delay and cost impacts. We have responded back to them that we do require additional information and a bit of a deeper dive into that. So we're just waiting to hear back from them, and we have also engaged external legal on this matter. In terms of project updates, during this reporting period, the contractor did complete 30-day plant-wide commissioning. So that was successful, and that's an important milestone that was achieved. We did reach a commercial solution on the column fermented sludge rotary drum thickeners. And what they do is they basically dewater some of the end product. And it wasn't quite meeting specifications. So we have figured out a way to move forward on that. We are continuing to work towards some ongoing plant-wide deficiency resolution and working towards meeting or resolving some of the 8 outstanding appeals that remain. In terms of schedule, I mentioned we did meet substantial. So to get to total performance, we have to resolve some of these deficiencies, and we are waiting for a number of spare parts to arrive on site. So that's an important part of us meeting total performance. And in terms of risks, we do have one new risk that we've identified, and that's
as we work towards resolution of some of these outstanding appeals, it does present a financial risk to us. They are going through and we're working through collaboratively with the contractor through an alternative dispute resolution process. And we're using internal and some external legal as well to help us through this process. And in terms of subsequent events, I think I spoke to the 30-day success or 30-day test, which happened subsequent. And we also did reach a commercial solution in order to hand over the last two remaining areas of the plant. So we are moving forward, we're getting there, and pretty soon you won't be hearing from me anymore on this project.
Any questions? Okay, all's in favor? Opposed, carried. Water meter renewals.
That's me, right? So this is the 7th quarterly status report for the water meter renewals advanced metering system project for the period ending January 31st, 2026. The project is currently reported as on schedule and on adopted budget, with expenditures to date of just over $910,000. From a procurement perspective, the project is advancing through the 2 concurrent and negotiated RFPs, one for the water meter and AMI supply, and the other one for installation. The stages for the supply contract, it was we were in stage 3. It was released December 11th and closed on February 6th. We have actually made it through the next 2 stages of that procurement process, and we have now found our negotiation partner. So I'd like to let everybody know we came in within budget, or all 3 bids were within budget that we got. So just good news on that side. We are just working through the negotiations at this point in time. The installation negotiated RFP was issued on January 6th and closed March 16th. We have evaluated that proposal. We are going to the next stage, which is the demonstrations. That's happening at the end of this month, and pricing will also happen at the end of this month as well. So we'll hopefully get everything, all the pricing kind of wrapped up, at least with negotiation partners by the end of this month. There is a little bit of a scheduling risk to the project due to some of the delays with the negotiated RFP process and the holiday break that we had to schedule around. We have now pushed the award date back for the supply to September, and then the installation contract back to December. One of the main reasons for that is there is some contract dependencies, so we can't award the installation contract until we know who the supply contractor is, just to finalize some of those numbers there. So this shifts the start of installations from Q4 2026 to Q2 2027. Just going through the different tables. Yeah, all the tables have been updated to reflect that Q3 timing, Q3, Q4 for awards. And just with the risks involved, there's 2 new risks. One was the schedule, and the other one is supply chain. It's just due to this situation that's happening down in the States where most of these things are manufactured. There is some civil unrest, there's transportation, borders, other things like that could cause supply chain issues. But during our negotiations, we are looking for a mitigation plan from the proponent that we're working with to address those. And yeah, that's it. So any questions?
Yeah, there's in table 3 talks about the exchange rate has increased the cost of supply of materials. And then the following line, how implemented speculated USC tariffs may apply to meter and AMI transmitter components related is unknown. So these are risks that are presented right now, the exchange rate as well as tariffs that are applied.
Right. As part of our evaluation purpose, we actually ask questions on tariffs and exchange rates. Some of them have presented different mitigation methods for those tariffs and exchange rates. So we're working with our negotiation partner right now to ensure that we have either acceptable exchange rate that we're acceptable on the triggers and mechanisms that change, and with tariffs, we're mitigating those as well to see where else can you manufacture? Are there different manufacturing plants? Can we front load some of the inventory? So we've looked at those as part of the evaluation.
Yeah,
Sorry, Councilor Alco,
no problem. So on those points, this is again for the CFO. I had a chat with her recently about Buy Canada policy that I thought we were a little farther ahead on. Sounds like we're not, but maybe obviously the water meters aren't Buy Canada. They're coming straight from the States, including all the different risks associated with that. Can the CFO provide me, the committee, some information about where the Buy Canadian policy is at?
Yes, sure, I can, Counselor. So Buy Canada came out as part of the federal budget, as you know, late 2025. Canada will be requiring us to apply their policy as it relates to anything that is federally funded from the new funding sources. So we're following that pretty closely. So if let's assume we're getting funding for Project 3 for NUPIC from the federal government, that will have a Buy Canada requirement attached to it. It does not have a Buy Canada requirement attached to Project 2, just as an example. So there's a new line. The province, of course, is been working very closely with Canada to have a provincial Buy Canada policy that is very much aligned. Canada expects us to have a policy on where there's federal funding being applied to city projects to have a project that's aligned. So we're just trying to make sure that we don't proceed with a policy that we have to change in order to meet standards that are required as part of funding agreements. But I have read the Buy Canada policy, and there are just a few things I just want to point out. And that is Canada has defined what a Canadian supplier is, which adds quite a lot of clarity, which is very helpful. It is not focused on ultimate ownership or direct ownership of the business. So we're not necessarily looking at US owners as a prohibited supplier, for example. What they're really looking for is location of business. So if any company that has a physical location in Canada, employs Canadians, pays taxes in Canada, is making investments to the economy, that would be considered a Canadian business under their definition. So when we were previously worried about specifically US parents and things like that, that is not really part of the federal definition of Canadian, and it's the same, the province is aligned similarly on that front too. So the province is actually pretty close to, they've done a lot of work on that. There needed to be a lot of clarity with the Buy Canada policy with the federal government, because there's quite a bit of defense language that is in it. And also, they're not quite done. They haven't finished rolling out their full Buy Canada language, which includes policies on reciprocal procurement. So policies around trade agreements with other countries and how that interfaces. And then also really relating to medium and small businesses, which, as you know, we work with a lot of medium and small businesses. So we're looking forward to clarity on that. So we're staying very closely aligned with both of our funding partners to where they're at. We're letting them lead the charge on the conversation, and they're not really saying anything that alarms me at this stage. We're still, from a budget perspective and a financial perspective, we are holding our suppliers accountable to keeping costs aligned within budgets so that we're not impacted by tariffs and otherwise. And we do reserve the right to consider where ingredients to our supply contracts as well as our suppliers are bidding from. So the federal government does have some they use kind of like a discount methodology, which is kind of the equivalent of providing points in an RFP to a Canadian bidder. So it's not really looking like they would preclude US suppliers. But they would provide an advantage in the bidding process to a Canadian supply. And then, of course, there's exceptions if using a Canadian supplier would cause significant project delays. And also if the materials aren't available in Canada. So there's quite a number of exceptions too that they're considering. So we're staying on top of it. Obviously, we'll provide more once we have it. My current recommendation is to leverage the hard work that the province has already been doing, very close to sharing that with us, although they've been saying that for a little while in fairness to us. But yes, we're kind of following that still very closely. Thank you.
Just one follow-up question. The service provider, the installation supplier, are they Canadian?
The installation, actually, to clarify a little more, both of all the bidders are Canadian companies. The manufacturing happens in the US and it flows through a distributor that is Canadian bidder. So all the bidders on both the contracts are Canadian companies. Just one has a flow through as a distributor and the other one would be an installation company, which would be Canadian. Yes.
Great, thank you.
Nick, I'll move the public service recommendation to receive this information.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers. All those in favor? Opposed, carried. Ferry Road and Riverbend Combined Sewer Relief Works.
Okay, great. So this one relates to the construction of our large diameter long Rutland Tunnel. In this reporting period, we spent $1.85 million out of the $55 million budget. So that puts us at 5% of the project budget. In terms of schedule, the contractor is still on target to meet both their substantial performance date, which is October 31st of this year, and total performance next year, which is June 30th. They did revise some of the intermediate completion dates for the construction of the outfall. That was due to the encountering some additional boulders in the area. They have subsequently completed it. And as a result of the ground conditions, they added a fourth shaft that they were going to use for launching their tunnel boring machine. And all the shafts have been constructed as well, so all 4 of them. At this point in time, they're preparing to start their tunneling by setting up their site compound in the Portville Park. And the tunnel boring machine is scheduled to arrive towards the end of this month. And the plan is to start the tunneling works in beginning of May. So that's actually really exciting. And there's no new risks that have been identified. And we do continue to coordinate with all the stakeholders. There's a lot of stakeholders on this project because we are in parks by 2 schools. Work is progressing well.
Just out of curiosity, what's the size of the tunnel?
It's a great question. Normally I know the stat and how many Cynthia's tall it is, but I forget. So I'll have to give it to you in more nominal metrics of 2.4 meters. So, and it's 2 kilometers.
That's at least 2 Cynthia's.
It's gotta be 2 Cynthia's tall, yeah.
It's interesting in the sense that they were talking, there's a tunnel being built, I think it's in New York for the subway line. And they talk about it doing 40 feet of boring a day. So, yeah, it's interesting how those machines work.
They're really fascinating, and there'll be an opportunity to see the machine before it's lowered down if there's interest at all. Because it's really quite cool to see it. And you see the cutting face, and they have different cutting faces for different ground conditions.
And it's going to be gravity?
It will be a gravity sewer, yes.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, straight to the river outfall.
Right?
Someone's ready to move this one?
I'll move the public service recommendation. There's no obligation associated with receiving this as information.
Very good. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Are we good to keep going, I guess?
Yeah, we can go till 22. I mean, the event doesn't start till noon. Well, doors open at 11:45.
What was sort of the meaty one? I mean, would you be okay if we continued maybe with the rest of the agenda after?
Yeah, let's see.
You took off maybe?
Yeah.
I know you've got you're
Oh, right, yeah.
You're hosting a thing over.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah, I thought you were gonna.
let's go.
Let's
Yeah.
go.
All right. So the first report, finance report we're going through is our actual year-end results. We call it a forecast report because it's before the audit and final adjustments are made. But we are far enough along in both those processes that we can say that these are pretty confident numbers. As we have been doing all year, we have started to increase the transparency and inclusion of the information that we include in these reports. Previously, we only spoke to the general revenue fund as part of the quarterly forecasts, but we've been adding more information and comments relating to our utilities, both being transit and water and waste, as well as our SOAs as part of these. So this is our first kind of 12-month report that includes those. It'll be a lot less different when you see in May the consolidated year-end results. That includes even more entities like the Convention Center and Center Venture, for example. So we have even more entities as part of the consolidated results, but it won't be such a big gap between financial information now between this report and those consolidated statements. So I'm going to get John to walk us through at a high level the results, and then I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Tracy. I will now take the committee through the highlights of the financial status report for the year ending December 31st, 2025. The December report shows a forecasted operating deficit of $14.3 million in the tax supported general revenue fund, or 1% of budget. This is an improvement over our Q3 forecast of $3.1 million. Utilities shows an $82.8 million variance to the adopted budget, and the SOAs have a slight surplus of $300,000. I'll have more details on these later in the report. So if you look at the top of page 4, this shows the efficiency and management vacancy targets. This report recognizes savings of the $51.8 million budgeted for the year. And just to talk about Kelly's comments when he was the delegation, we just acknowledged that we met the targets. We never measured how much we surpassed those. So that's what this chart was trying to indicate.
Although I can say that it's at least 9 million more.
Yeah. So maybe next time I'll just do check marks.
Yeah.
Instead of numbers.
Yeah, or I mean, let's celebrate the savings. We must be more specific.
Yeah. So if you look at the bottom of page 4, it shows the history of the quarterly forecast of the general revenue fund over the last 5 years. So things are pretty stable. But if you look at this year specifically, we've been pretty much bang on throughout each of the quarters. Page 5 and 6 provides more details on the $14.3 million deficit in the general revenue fund with the breakdowns by departments. So in sake of time, I'll skip over that part and then move on to page 6. And you can see there's the details of the city utilities. Transit is forecasting a $4.1 million increase in retained earnings. Savings on fuels, carbon tax, maintenance, and salary offsets by lower fare revenue, unfortunately. But overall, this is an improvement of $3.7 million since the last forecast. Water and waste results are measured against the adopted budget and do not reflect the impact of the solid waste and sewer volume changes that were made by council on March 27th of this year, of last year, 2025. With the new rates taking effect on April 1st, 25, the sewer utility results are over the amended budget by $78.7 million. All additional funds are required to fund significant capital investments and maintain operations. So Schedule 4 of the attachment provides a great breakdown of the utilities and SOAs. And then on page 7 and 8, you'll find the details of Financial Stabilization Reserve Fund. Schedule 7 of the attachment provides a good summary of the changes from the FSR from the beginning of the year. With the action council took on June 26, 2025 to help replenish the FSR, it's able to cover the $14.3 million deficit in the general revenue fund and still have a projected $25.9 million balance at the end of the year. This is still short of the targeted balance of $85.1 million, which is usually 6% of our operating budget. So lastly, on page 8 of the report is an annual count of FTEs for the city. FTE stands for full-time equivalent and is not the same as a head count of numbers of employees, but an equivalent of full-time position. In 2025, we saw an increase of 249 FTEs from 2024 for a total of 9,501. Thank you, Chair Barati. That concludes my report.
Questions?
In terms of the $20 million in vacancy management that was saved, there hasn't been any noticeable difference in service qualities?
No, so Counselor, this is a number that is pretty flat throughout the multi-year and it's kind of consistent year to year. And really, there's no additional concerted effort to identify positions to keep vacant. It's really, like was reported for police, it is often the amount of financial savings that are between when an employee provides notice. Often they only need to give us 2 weeks notice, for example, but it might take 4 months to backfill their position. And departments like fire, paramedic, and police have number of classes through the year, as you know, so recruitment intakes, and that doesn't always align when someone leaves or a retirement. So these are our natural savings that happen as a result of turnover within the departments. And it's based on the assignment of actual, it's based on historical actuals in departments.
Any impact overtime? Potentially.
Potentially, departments like fire, paramedic, as we know, are struggling to fill all their vacancies, but they also have a number of absences that are not driven by retirements and things like that too. So in part.
Yeah, I'll move the public service recommendation to accept this as information.
Okay. Good, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Number 13 is the 2025 commitment reserve.
Okay, and I can speak to that. This is for an information report. And it's just a matter of providing you a bit of an update of how the commitment reserve landed at the end of the year. The commitment reserve is somewhat a unique process to the city where we look to potentially carry over operating costs that were budgeted for in 25 into 2026. And to meet the definition of a commitment reserve and to fall under there, when I look to approve them is it very, like our funds, is there a plan for the funds and our conversations around those funds well underway? So it's not quite an accrual, but it's kind of pretty close to an accrual. So the example that you provided, Councillor Chambers, earlier is with the delegate is kind of normal for this type of reserve, which is you've had a number of conversations with a community organization. It's well down the path, but the paperwork hasn't been signed yet. And so this reserve is designed for that purpose. The net difference between last year's balance and this year's balance with the ins and outs is pretty flat. It's a little over $4 million.
And I'll point out too, like when it comes to the communities fund and the discretionary funds, again, available to members of council, there's instances for sure where members will want to carry over, a certain amount to do a bigger project, like a spray pad may require 2 or 3 years worth of allocations to make the project happen.
You can bundle multi-year.
Although you only do it 1 year, carry it over. But
just 2 years.
Maybe, yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Charlie, do you want to move it?
I'll move it.
Okay, thank you. All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Okay, and John's going to walk us through the federal and provincial grant update, and I can chime in on any new information.
Thank you, Tracy. I'll now take the committee through the update of the status of the City of Winnipeg provincial / federal grants as of March 26, 2026. As normal, the highlighted yellow cells have been updated since the last report. On the first page for the operating funding, you can see the 2026 numbers have been added to the report. The second page of the report shows you the capital position of the funding using pie charts. The pie charts reflect the outstanding funds for SIB and ISIP programs. There was a $16 million additional funding from the province for the South Winnipeg Rec Campus project, and also $81.8 million of cash was received for ISIP. The SIB charts are updated, and the 2026 numbers have been added with the 2022. So if you flip over to page 3, that shows the SIB funding allotments over the past 4 years and have been updated for the 2026 numbers. Page 4 shows the breakdown of the ISIP funding. The additional amounts for the provincial funding that was mentioned earlier is in this report and is highlighted in the grid, and the cash received is also highlighted on the right-hand side of the grid. The bottom of the page 4 shows other operating capital, not related to SIB or ISIP, so that's your center port funding. I think we had mentioned before in one of the other reports I heard. And then page 5 and 6 talks about additional information about the Canadian Public Transit Fund and the Canadian Housing Infrastructure Fund. That concludes my report.
Okay, I can further add that since we last met and spoke on this report, we have received the long-awaited draft of the CHIF agreement, which is those funds are designed for Project 2 of NUPIC. That will roll in the ISIP funds for that, just to deal with the stacking requirements of those two programs, but it combines the ISIP funds for Project 2 with the CHIF funds of Project 2 under a new CHIF agreement. The base of that agreement, our legal counsel is still looking at it, but it's predominantly looks like the ISIP agreement, so we're familiar with it. I have taken a look at it just from a high level point of view, and I can confirm that the only requirements that require council changes are consistent with what was previously shared with council. And nothing new has been added in that regard. So those commitments are specifically that we are required to speak to the Canadian Infrastructure Bank as a potential source of funding for the Winnipeg's debt portion of the project, and we have done that. And we will continue to keep talking to them because there's an opportunity to blend that with the debt portion of Project 3. So they'd be looking to maybe do a combined issue. There is interest rate advantage for us to consider that option. So we will take that quite seriously, looking at that as a potential. It includes the adopting the zoning for 4 units as of rights. Nothing has changed around the wording to that. And as you know, we've already met that requirement. And then also there was a requirement to implement a 3-year freeze on increasing the development charges above rates in effect as of April 2, 2024. So that clock started ticking a while ago. Winnipeg does not have any development charges that align with their definition. So we would not be able to add anything new until April 2, 2027. There is no reference. I can also confirm there is no reference to Buy Canada in the CHIF agreement, and there is no labor agreement language as part of the CHIF agreement. I have also submitted the 2026 FASCA funding. I did that a couple months ago. The province does commit to reviewing that a lot sooner than they did in 2025. So now that their budget has passed, I think that's something that can be tabled much earlier than happened last year.
Appreciate it. Very good.
Yeah.
Hey, Councilor Rowe, a question?
Yeah, so in the CHIF agreement, it states in the first paragraph, growing demand for affordable housing. Now, again, River Heights, we have a lot of infill happening on. It's not affordable at all. It's way more expensive than the existing house they ripped down. So again, I know we're going to use this issue of supply, which if you make more supply, then people, I still don't really buy into that argument, but that's fine. So, but if the CHIF agreement to invest all this money, is there a requirement for real affordable housing? Not just increasing supply, because supply actually costs us a lot of money. So, is there the CHIF require that we have certain affordable, like below market or even whatever affordable term you want to use as a requirement, or are this going to go to stuff like Prairie Point, which wouldn't have any requirement for any type of affordable housing?
Yeah, a good question, Councillor. There is nothing in the CHIF agreement that is over and above what the half agreement requires. And I don't think as robust as what the half agreement actually, it's not as explicit as the half agreement. And so I'm not, just because I know we've met that already as part of the CHIF, I didn't dig a whole lot deeper, but we can provide you with more details of what subset of half agreement stuff applies here.
And then, okay, second question. I reached out to the federal government. I haven't followed up yet with regarding this idea that they're going to lower development fees for other provinces that have them. I did explain to my member of parliament that we don't have any. We suck. We haven't put one in place forever, and that's why growth doesn't pay for growth at all for us. Has there been any conversation with the federal government saying, well, we should get something? Like we actually did what you wanted years ago. Is there any conversations about that going on?
I know I brought it up with elected officials as well, but on the bureaucratic side, can you let us know, have we approached, how are we being helped by the fact that we don't have a development charge when, like you say, like they're being lowered in other cities through federal government supports?
I think that's an excellent question. I'm not aware of any conversations that public service has had on that front. But I think it's something that we can certainly, we're already talking to them about the Build Canada Strong Fund and where we can apply to those funds. There is sections, both the provincial territorial stream and the direct stream could have housing related impacts and development impacts. And so as far as I know, they're still inventing that program, but I haven't seen any reference to development fees in that, but it'll be part of the conversation.
And my last question is, if it's possible, I've lost count about how many requirements that the federal government or the province are tying to their funding. I had a conversation with the mayor recently about this is the time that we can maybe squeak in a development fee by just keeping back some of those permit fees so we have something. I understood what he said then is we can under half, and then I learned no, we can't under half, but we can under CHIF or some other program. Is it possible to get it, or if I need a council motion, I'll ask for it? All these programs, I'd like it quite clearly listed about what the quid quo is, what we cannot do if we accept this money for, just for those people to know. For example, the transit funding, I believe it's people who are by BRT lines, they're going to have no parking minimums. Well, I don't think anybody in my neighborhood know about that yet. I barely know about that. I think it's true, but I'm not going to go out there and tell them that. The public has a right to know. We will make the choice as a council because we need that money. And again, beggars have to do stuff like that all the time. So is there a possibility for the Canadian Public Transit Fund, the HAF Fund, Build Canada Fund, the CHIF Fund, are we going to Build Canada Strong funding? Can we get a list of what are the requirements that the city of Winnipeg has to follow if and as we have accepted these funding sources?
And beyond that too, John, the other piece that's interesting, sorry, Councilor Arco, the other thing that's interesting in this whole thing is we're seeing some communities where politically, these mass rezonings have been problematic and unpopular. They've repealed them. For example, Calgary's repealed it.
Yeah.
What have the impacts been on Calgary? In Ontario, there were certain things they didn't accept. Did they have certain things?
Did Toronto lose their funding when they do fourplexes everywhere? They said they're going to, but I'm not sure it happened.
So you need to follow up on that, I think, too.
Okay, thank you very much.
You don't need to do a motion on that. I think what might be appropriate is we create a table for all of the comments.
That'd be great.
Yeah, and across I almost see something about all the different funding types, agreements, and then the requirements, and kind of show where even just ticking the boxes of where it applies and where it doesn't apply.
Perfect. That'd be perfect. Thank you very much. That's it.
No problem.
Appreciate the report. Any other questions or somebody want to move it?
I'll move it.
Give John a turn here. Councilor Arco, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. And finally, we have a verbal report on the financial condition of U.S. tariffs in the city.
Okay, so Paul is one of our economists, is going to give, as per usual, an update on kind of at the macro level what's happening relating to tariffs. While he's queuing that up, I can give a couple verbal updates on tariffs, and then also just because it's part of our global environment these days, we have some budget risk associated with fuel. I just want to mention. So actual direct tariffs that we've had this year so far is still very small. It's about $2,000, so nominal. And so that's direct tariffs. As you know, we track that now. Fuel. Our two main users of fuel within the city, as you can appreciate, are fleet and transit. Transit is roughly about 3/4 of it, and fleet is the remaining usage. We have a partnership with the province. We've gone to market for our fuel. So what you see at the pump is not what we pay, for example. But Paul, as he's queuing up, I'll give him credit for coming up with some fuel price scenarios for us. And if we use kind of a base scenario, which is higher than budget, but kind of like a medium likely chance risk that we're going to use as part of our forecasting. That would have a roughly $5.7 million impact to our budget. And then just at a high end, we used a high rate. And so that could be up to $13 million from budget. So, and that's really high. That's not the likely situation we're going to forecast based on the base rate, which is a $5.7 million impact to our budget.
So like roughly what would that equate to in terms of like, I mean, I guess the transit is primarily diesel versus.
Transit is primarily diesel, almost all diesel actually, from when calculating this.
So like what price points would those two scenarios represent?
Okay, so the budget, just as a baseline, diesel is budgeted at $1.19, $1.19. The base rate is $1.45, and the high is $1.76. I thought we, sorry, we did pull that.
Yeah. I know I'm asking.
Sorry, that's on the materials management website, which I'd have to go quickly pull.
Okay, that's fine.
We'll grab that for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's a good question. We should have had
Morning.
it.
Yeah.
My fault.
Good morning.
My fault.
Thank you for your patience today. This is a longer than normal meeting. Again, we didn't have the last one and there's some bigger reports this month.
That is a-okay. So as Tracy said, I'm here to give you the latest quarterly update on situation with US and Canadian tariffs. I got about 10 slides to present, broken into 4 parts. So first, we're going to talk about the US Supreme Court's decision on tariffs that came out February 20. Then we'll jump into current state of US and Canadian tariff policies, CUSMA update, which Ryan had mentioned earlier in his report, and then finally an updated tariff analysis, Winnipeg's economy, which last time we presented those numbers was back in September. So we've had some shifts based upon recent policy changes. First off, so one of the major avenues of legislation that the president used to impose tariffs was through the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, and declared that the emergency was for Canada that there was a fentanyl crisis of drugs coming across the border from Canada into the United States. And he also used that argument for China and Mexico as a pretext then to impose tariffs on Canada and other countries. Where that ended up was 10% tariff on Canadian potash and energy. And then ultimately it was a 35% tariff, first started 25, but 35% tariff on everything else, with the carve out being that if you're CUSMA compliant, no tariff. Then for practically every other country, as you recall about a year ago, there was a tariff liberation day where they imposed tariffs on practically the country based on an economic model of due to trade balances. And the emergency was that you've got these large trade imbalances where the US is importing more than they're exporting to those other countries. A few small businesses took the government to court and sued them, saying they can't do this. And the Supreme Court ultimately struck down these tariffs, saying that the president did not have authority to impose tariffs under that act. So 3 days later, under Section 122 of the Trade Act, a separate piece of legislation, the Trump administration imposed a 10% tariff on all goods for 150 days. Again, with exceptions, CUSMA compliance being the one that carries over for us. Any extension beyond 150 days has to be passed by Congress. So that puts you into July when they'd have to vote on that. And as a reminder, which will be a bit of a theme coming up, we're in midterm season, the election coming in November. So that really is at play here. This decision does not cover sector-specific tariffs that are hitting particular industries quite hard, notably steel and aluminum, which is done through Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act. Moving on now to current US tariff measures on Canada. Here, so we've got sort of a building list of what we've presented over the past few quarters and then start updating as we go. So the top two non-CUSMA compliant exports of or everything else that's not potash energy, and then potash energy, those originally started March 4th. And then, as I just explained, the Supreme Court decisions have now lowered to 10%. Aluminum, steel, and the derivative products were originally 25% and bumped up to 50%. Then recently, they've done this more complicated in April, where it's still 50% on if it's basically a steel or aluminum, pretty raw, unprocessed product that's going to be turned into something else. They also had it, so it used to be a 25% tariff on the content of like aluminum steel in a product. They've now changed that. Instead of trying to say, well, that product is 25% steel aluminum, so we'll tariff that at 50%. It's just they're tariffing the product at 25% for the total value. And the reason why they're doing it is they had a hard time applying that original tariff from an administrative standpoint. It's just customs duty, things are not being applied properly. And then if there's 15% or less of the weight of the product is steel or aluminum, no tariff. Non-US content, CUSMA compliant motor vehicles, the other thing new there that's been in place for a year. Copper and derivative products, the only change there is the same piece to what I just talked about for steel and aluminum. It's separated out because copper came in originally August 1st of last year. Lumber, no change. The $800 de minimis exemption that was rescinded at the end of August of last year. That would have, for tariffs that would have been paid on those products, so if you're sending in a low value good to the States, which would mostly be impacting small businesses, they would have been tariffed probably under IEEPA. So it would have been 25, then later 35%, because small businesses are not going to make the effort to demonstrate they're CUSMA compliant, even if in fact they are. It's just prohibitively costly. Now, because of the court decision, 10%. Certain upholstery furniture and kitchen cabinets and vanities, those were announced in October, not new, but should come at the December meeting. Medium and heavy duty trucks, 25%, relatively, so not new, November. Buses, 10%, that's going to come up a little bit later because it does impact one of our industries here. But again, not new. And then the other fun, complicated one that is new is pharmaceutical and pharmaceutical ingredients. So this goes after patented drugs and key ingredients, not generic drugs. There's two stages to this. First, 17 major firms are going to be, this is going to be applied to starting July 31st. Then a second stage for everybody else, September 29th. On top of that, there are countries that have already entered in trade agreements with the United States, so they're getting lower preferential rates. And then if you're a company that has done FDI in the States or planning to do it, basically from their standpoint, reshoring manufacturing of pharmaceuticals, you're going to get a lower rate. And there's probably other conditions. This one was, if you're asking to model it, that'd be quite messy to go figure out. On the Canadian front, steel and aluminum, those reciprocal tariffs we put in place back in March of last year, and the same thing in US content of CUSMA compliant automobiles, no change there. The new one that was put in at the end of December was tariffs on steel derivative products. This is done in response to what basically the US has done. So they put up a wall that's making it harder for the US to then import steel products. So then those exporters are going to want to find new markets to go sell their goods. So we've now put up a wall to try and prevent that, to protect our own domestic market. Detailed list on those products. This does not stack on top of current steel tariffs we have against China or the United States. Any questions? I'm rifling through pretty quick.
Can you go a little quicker? I have to get my wife to an appointment, so I have to leave right away.
Sorry. Nope. That's okay. CUSMA updates. July 1 is the 6th year anniversary, which triggers an automatic renewal. Canada's completed its pre-negotiation and political industrial consultations. Three key pieces to this. The US sees value in core parts of CUSMA, so it's not like they're going to throw it out altogether. The US is further along with Mexico than Canada. And the other piece too is they're likely going to need additional bilateral agreements to sort of deal with carve-outs of issues where it's with one country then not the other. So trade area 10 for the States, they have with us is dairy, so they're going to want to deal with that separately with us. Three different options here of how it's going to proceed. Likely we're going to go into annual reviews with some possible extension in the future. Any extension is going to require another 6-year review. Decision expected either later this year or into next year. Quickly jumping into our charts here, this First one shows what percentage of what we are estimating is Winnipeg economic region's exports to the United States. There's a lot of hoops we have to make to from a statistical modeling standpoint. It's not pure data captured on our exports. So caveat there is right now for the last 3 months up to February this year, about 80% of our exports have been into the United States duty free. Prior to the trade war back in 2024, it was averaging around 97%. The deterioration in the last 3 months, pinpoint from the data, does appear to be with buses. We can see that from public data, but we're making a number of assumptions on that. Just a caveat there. Second chart here shows nominal exports. That means we're including inflation to the United States, purely just goods. What we find is not total value of exports 25 over 24 is down 16%, breaking that out US versus non-US, about 19% decline to the US and a 4% increase to other countries. So somewhat of a shift in market, but the US is such a big export destination that can't counteract it. And then the effective tariff rate is the blue line. So here we see that is, moved, shift this here. The past few months it's bouncing between 3 and 4%, but still it's quite low relative to some of the headline tariff rates that we hear of, like 25-50%. So it's still quite low on a general basis. And finally, here getting into the top 10 industries is where we're estimating when these are ranked based upon estimated tariffs collected. That does not mean these are actually paying these tariffs. Most research finds that 90% of tariffs paid are actually being paid for by the purchaser, not the seller, not the export itself. So top one being aerospace products, parts manufacturing at 9.5 million. And then going down to the top 4 is primary metal manufacturing is the next one at 5.11 at the bottom up. And then for buses would be motor vehicle manufacturing at 6.8. And this is for the last 3 months to give us a sense as to what has happened since tariffs have been in place.
Sorry, Paul, looks like John really has to literally move here or. You'll share this presentation with the clerk and yeah, and we can make sure the copy gets to all members of the committee.
Yep.
And
if I may, one last quick message.
Please.
The top 4 industries are accounting for about 3.7%. That's what Winnipeg's told it would be. So while this is quite painful for certain industries, Winnipeg broadly, it's still, I think not as bad as it was initially thought to be a year ago.
There were issues earlier on, like where there were CUSMA compliant items, but they fell under other trade agreements and they weren't going through the hassles of being CUSMA compliant.
Yeah,
so we're seeing more items becoming CUSMA compliant.
There are, yeah. And then the ones that where they weren't, it would be paying pretty low tariff rates. Be like, what's the point? But there is some shift in that as well.
Okay. Any last questions or you okay there, John? Okay, somebody want to move this report as information then?
Okay.
And then the public service recommendation, quarterly updates, right? Okay. All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Thank you so much, Paul, and try to rush you a little bit here at the end. Okay, so we want to move consent and adjournment then.
I'll move it.
Councillor Allard, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Take care, everyone. Have a good day.
Bye.